Conference. Welcome to everybody that's our extended family, and we're glad that you get to be part of our Shala through these lovely little videos that we've been putting on YouTube. We're continuing our studies of the Heart of Yoga with Des Kachar, and we've been studying pranayama. So pranayama has taken us into deeper understandings of the breath practice, the breath part of our yoga, and into understanding some of the intricacies of how powerful and how we utilize our breaths. So a couple weeks ago we introduced the vayus. What are the vayus? The winds. And today I'm going to reference those as we have as like the quality of your breath pushing the arm of the windmill. And getting into the vayus and moving energy into the very edges of our bodies, which we're trying to do with our physical postures of yoga. We say asanas means postures. Then adding the breath to that, trying to get a movement of energy into the very edges and full 72,000 nadis of our body. But last week, and I think the week before as well, I started also referring to them as currents. Because it kind of helps me a little bit to think of it not just as wind having the ability to push things, but taking that a step further and saying it creates a current. So if we're in the ocean, we understand that there are currents in the ocean. We understand with the weather that there are currents in the wind as well, the way things work. So thinking of our yoga practice is that we have these four major vayus, right? So we have, what's this one? Think of Japanese noodles. Udon. Udana vayu, I have my little ways. Prana vayu, the heart and chest area. Samana vayu, which is a digestion. And then apana vayu, which is the elimination. And also in thinking of that, think of the 72,000 nadis that run through here. So what we're trying to do to stay healthy and vibrant is to push these currents throughout these regions of our body to stay healthy. And we know how it affects our health, each one of these regions. When we become better breathers, we become better prana practitioners. So we've then moved from studying the vayu to the bandhas. What are the bandhas? The locks. So the first lock we studied was Uriyaabanda. Where's that located? It's probably the first one as Ashtangis, as yogis, that we can master. The first one, which is a couple inches below the navel, and it's pulling that region in. And we were saying even as you bend forward in poses, you literally hollow that area out and hold your prana in. We lock the prana in. So rather than coming to our practice, I was saying, when we're new at this practice, we move our limbs like puppets. We kind of move from our limbs rather than from our center. As we master our practice, we begin to pull in through the first bandha, and the same in martial arts, and be able to extend and move our physical body from that center place, extend it out and in with power and also with grace and fluidity. Well, the breath is very similar. So this idea of locking means that I can lock my prana, and then once the prana is locked in, I can move it around a little bit better because it's not outside of me. So Uriyaabanda was the first lock, and then this week we're studying the second lock, which is what? Mula Bandha. What's Mula Bandha? What's your mula? Your mula. It's a little bit lower, so it's basically your perineal muscles, right? The Pilates people refer to them as your bathroom muscles, which is helpful to understand sort of what's going on here. And what we do in the practice then is we actually contract those muscles. So how often are you supposed to be in Mula Bandha in your Ashtanga practice? All the time. Which is challenging. It's very difficult. What happens for most of us is we engage the lock, I set it up, and then I'm counting my 5 breaths, and it starts to release. Those muscles start to let go. So a lot of the times we can use the vinyasas, and also we can use just our mindfulness around our practice to continually reset and re-engage Mula Bandha, contracting those muscles. And of course, the more we do it, the better we get at it as well. So I had a couple analogies or metaphors that was helpful for me. I hope it's helpful for you guys to think of it, because I think sometimes the bandhas, we understand them from a physical physical point of view, we understand that keeping our perineal muscles is incredibly healthy for us, especially as we age, that we want to have our bathroom muscles really strong. Sitting in Western chairs do nothing to help us strengthen those muscles at all, so we need some practice where we can keep ourselves healthy. Uriyaabanda as well keeps our backs and our spines really healthy. So we know physiologically it's very smart to do yoga practice and keep these healthy. But energetically as well, if we can learn to hold our prana in ourselves, on our yoga practice, we learn that we can hold our prana and be more conscious in our life with our energy and also our emotions, and how all of that's connected with our consciousness. So one of the ways I like to think about it is by using the analogy of water. So if I want to hold, if I'm saying the water is my breath, is my energy, and I want to hold it in, I need lock. So I'm thinking of a bathtub, right? So we put the water in and we're going to hold it by plugging up the bottom of the bathtub. And that's your Mula Bandha. Plug it up at the bottom and hold in the prana. So now that the prana is held, we're going to come back to this idea of moving. Now that it's held, I can start to move this prana throughout the bathtub, right? I can move and create currents. So how do I do that? I use my hand. And if I push my hand around, I always say, like my bathtub, I stay there forever so the water gets cold. I put in a little more hot water. And if I do nothing, there's just hot water by my feet, right? But if I take my hand and I push my hand around the bathtub, it creates a current and it moves that hot water all throughout the tub. It's a beautiful metaphor for what you're trying to do in your yoga practice. You use your bandhas to lock and hold the container of water of prana in. And then we use asanas. We use the quality of our breath and the way we move our bodies throughout the practice to move like our hands, these currents that bring the prana into all the edges that we need it to. Think of the analogy again. If I want hot water throughout, I need to move my hand to get the water to the back of the tub, around my back, and all the way circling around. We want the same thing when we're breathing. You don't want a shallow breath just in your heart region, especially when we understand that it's more than just oxygenating, it's pranic. So we want to push it and move it into the edges. And how we do that becomes really mastering your practice. So let's talk about mastering a practice. And my other analogy for this week, since we were all just watching the Olympics, is to see a beautiful Olympic swimmer doing the butterfly. Did anyone get to watch that? So you can see how they move gracefully through the water in such a way like a dolphin, like where they barely splash because they're so efficient in the way that they use the frame of their body in the water. And then I was using myself as an example. If you guys have ever seen me in a pool or in the ocean trying to do the butterfly, it would look like something that you would be like, somebody save her, she's drowning, right? I'm not a master swimmer. I'm certainly not a master at the butterfly. And you could see the difference is so obvious in something like this. To put me in a container of water, I would splash around a lot, you know? And then you see this master swimmer and how he moves so gracefully through this water, moves against his body in a way that is so refined and sort of aerodynamic and graceful and powerful. And it's really, again, a metaphor for all of you, because that's how we're meant to move through our asana practice. Maybe we don't have a container of water here, we have a container of prana or air. That we think of the same thing, the way the butterfly arms come down and hits the water. We're moving our arms up with an inhale into Surya Namaskar and back down as we exhale. And I just want you to think today, if you were in a pool of water, would your sun salutes be like that Olympic swimmer, or would you splash a lot? You know, when you jump back, you know, from your third position into your fourth position of Surya Namaskara, would you like empty the pool, right, when you jump back? Or would you be so graceful and refined in your movement that you would barely splash any water and look like that Olympic butterfly swimmer? That is what we're really moving towards in our practice as we look towards being a master practitioner, a senior practitioner. It's not always about getting more poses. You know, we're getting deeper and more flexible in poses. It's about refinement. And refinement for us comes not only in how we learn to hold our bodies efficiently, but also how we learn to breathe and move prana and move that current around efficiently will actually change the way the body moves. You know, so I want you to think of today again that, that actually our breath is consciousness. And so the more you can become, as we were saying, the famous psychologist Csikszentmihalyi, the more that you can be conscious of your breathing and the pranic movement and the currents that you're creating, the more you become one with the thing that you're doing, the more conscious you are. You know that person who's doing the butterflies, not thinking about what they're going to have for breakfast, right? It's the same for us. When we're breathing like that and moving like that, we're so present in the moment and one with the thing that we're doing. For us, we understand then as Ashtangis, that really raises the bar of consciousness for us. It's like that meditative practice that we do every day, every day, every day, and has a way of then imprinting our life when we have that level of consciousness. I don't have the quote with me, so can you grab it for me, Eric? We'll end with the quote, which is by one of my favorite authors, Dorian Israel. She's done a few books, translations on the Tao Ching, but this is from one of my favorite books, Unbound. Trust yourself. Doubt nothing that comes from inspiration. Deny nothing that comes from your imagination. And dismiss nothing that comes from your intuition. It is your heart that holds your vision. Trust yourself. And Wolfgang Goethe said, trust yourself and you will know how to live.